All right, we're back. 7:37, Wednesday, March 16th. Speaker Therese Terlaje. Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Morning, Chris. Good morning, KWM, and good morning, Guam.
All right, thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. I wanted to start with a follow-up on the gas relief. I know that you had a couple measures relative to the liquid fuel tax. So can we get an update on those, Madam Speaker?
Yes. So I introduced two bills. One is to repeal the liquid fuels tax on Guam, which currently is charging about 18 or 20 to 22 cents per gallon. Per gallon on top of regular fuel prices, everybody is paying an additional 18 to 22%. That money currently is going into the Guam Highway Fund. However, I think based on the revenue projections for this fiscal year and next fiscal year, that it looks like we have enough to cover that instead of charging every household for it. And actually, it's much more than every household. We are charging every single consumer of gas, everybody who's trying to get to work, every business who uses gas for their business is being charged this tax. And so I believe, based on our revenue projections, that we can cover 18 to 22 cents per gallon for these consumers from general fund revenues, as opposed to having them pay that. So the two bills, one is to repeal it altogether, the 18 to 22 cents. The other one is to repeal the 4-cent increase that was put into place in 2018. And I think we have other ways to cover that now, and that we should do that. We've been giving tax breaks for individual businesses. We've been giving tax breaks for entire industries. And I think it's time that we really focus on the consumers and make sure that this is something that every consumer is going to be able to feel, because almost every consumer on Guam is, needs gas to be, just for commerce, right? To participate in life on Guam right now. Gas is a necessity. And so I'd like to assist in that way. And I'm hoping to get a public hearing on the bill. That's really what we're looking for. We're looking for a public hearing that the sooner we have a hearing would determine whether we can implement this immediately for gas consumers today, or, hopefully for sure implement it for next fiscal year by October 1st, so that, and that we adjust our general fund budgets accordingly.
Has the governor said where she stands on this issue? Is she opposed to it because is the liquid fuel tax tied to funding anything important?
Well, I haven't heard whether she's opposed to it or not. I hope she supports it. It's very consistent with the program in Silapit, where they're trying to give $300 per household. But this is a more permanent assistance because it removes the tax forever, and it affects every single gas user as opposed to just households. And it's much more significant, in the long run, because it's 22 cents a gallon, a gallon. That's I'm hoping going to have a big impact. And I did hear her say that, she's concerned because it has an impact on, of course, the fund, the Guam Highway Fund, where this current tax is going into. Right. But I just think we have to look at it all together. We have to look at all the tax breaks that are being given around Guam, and we need to look at, individual consumers and the assistance that they need at these times. And we have to look at the general fund excess revenues that are being, divvied up. We've seen positions increase in the government. We've seen salaries increase in the government. And I think this should be the priority for our government, is to give this type of relief to taxpayers, to gas users. And we can't, we've been waiting for the congressman and our governor and, Gita to help us find relief from gas prices. That hasn't happened, and it's been years now. So I just think, instead of continuing to wait, we can do this in an interim while they can get to the root of, if there is any other way to reduce gas prices, and I haven't seen one yet.
Speaker, with so I know that the funds go to the highway fund, but don't we have a lot of ARP money and DPW's got all this other money that they're going to use for highway repairs?
Well, yes, infrastructure money is going to be used for highway repairs. Absolutely. It's going to be used for bridges, roads. It's going to be used for infrastructure such as utilities
Right.
and telecommunications. Yeah. So they really have a lot of discretion, and there's yeah. So I'm hoping, we have also received other federal highway money
Right.
for repair of roads. The village roads, I believe, like I said, it's only this tax removing 18 to 22 cents off of every gallon for you actually is only going to cost the government $11 million, right? At the most. I think their estimate is only $9 million. $9 million nowadays sounds like not much compared to $42 million in excess funds, right? And so what do we want to do with that, right? And so I think this should be a priority. And that's what I'm asking the community is to help me to let the governor know, the senators know, all these agencies to come out and also join me in saying that yes, it should be a priority. Let's do this for every individual on Guam who needs to buy gas. Let's help them out right now. This will actually spur commerce, I believe, and hopefully spur business income tax and business privilege taxes in other ways. So that's why I'm advocating for this, and I see it as a good long-term solution.
When is the public hearing? Do you know yet?
There hasn't been one set, so I am very much hoping that it's been referred to the Appropriations Committee, Senator Joseph Augustine, and I'm hoping that he will have a hearing on this right away. As I said, I think it's very consistent with what the governor is trying to do with the program in Silapit. That's all federal funds.
Right.
This is a local way that we can try to control our gas prices a little bit. We can't control the global prices.
Yeah.
We can control our local taxes.
Yeah, and I agree that $300. I mean, that's here today. I mean, it's gone tomorrow. I feel like it's already gone. People it's just separate needs. So this does seem like a more fixed long-term solution. Just switching gears, Speaker. I know Sabrina was able to interview the governor on the inaugural episode of The Hotspot, and the governor kind of I would say doubled down or tripled down, but I want to say like she quadrupled down on Eagles Field, and they're going to build. Basically, she was like, we're building the VA clinic. They want to do a hospital, Guam Behavioral Health Wellness Center. But as you know, I'm going to ask about these original landowners, as it pretty much looks like it's a done deal, and they won't be getting any land back at Eagles Field. What, if anything, do you feel can be done for them?
Oh, I don't think that's a done deal, right? I mean, she still has to justify it to these landowners. And I think it's a little bit cavalier to say, I've heard people say, oh, don't worry, that's just going to be something that the Ancestral Lands Commission has to fund, right? Compensation to these landowners who don't get their land back during this transaction. That's another liability for the Ancestral Lands Commission. Well, they have very limited funds, right? They have funds, but they're very limited. They haven't even made a single disbursement yet to a landowner. And so if we're going to tell these landowners, oh, go and wait for years and years for disbursement from the Ancestral Lands Commission, they might in the end up with pennies because of the number of landowners that we have to compensate. And so I don't agree with that. And there's also an agreement that she's proposing has to be made with the military. And we haven't seen the details of that either. Right. And so what commitment are we making on behalf of the government of Guam, and what investment? I think all of that still is subject to review, all of it. And I would ask the landowners to not give up. Do not give up, because there was not a single piece of land returned on Guam without a fight, without standing up for that. And I think we have to continue to do that. All of this any land return on Guam was because we had to be vocal, and those before us were, and we owe it to all the rest of the landowners who have not seen land return yet to do that, to help them in this.
Yeah, but Speaker, I mean, I think what's different here is back then we had to be vocal to the federal government, and now we're in a situation where it's our own government that, and I mean, the trend,
that's a good point.
The trend, right, is so I reported on this USO, and this was one of the things that we had talked about, excess lands over at the old USO. So, from what I understand, that land has been returned to the government of Guam, and now the PD Municipal Planning Council is going to be holding a meeting today where they're going to be entertaining proposals for the use of this land, which, according to PD Mayor, there are still a couple families who may have an original landowner claim on this property.
Yes.
Speaker, so I get what you're saying about the way we've always done things, but clearly, I mean, just sticking my finger in the air, this is.
Chris, I don't think that's acceptable. Yeah, if I may just say, I do not believe that the entire government of Guam should all of a sudden go for a land grab for these lands that are being returned. I think we should do what we have promised to do for decades now, and that is first look at the ancestral landowners. Can we return it to them, right? If you want to buy it from them, that's a separate negotiation. If you want to lease it from them, that's a separate negotiation. I can't see why the governor can't lease the property that, if there's a property she really wants, we'd have to work together to do that. But all of those are options if there's some very critical property. But to be so presumptuous and come out, for example, and start planning uses of property prior to talking to the ancestral landowners or prior to making these arrangements with the ancestral landowners, I just think I hate to see any other agencies, do this as well. I thought, that it was very clear, and I want to thank the landowners who are brave enough to stand up, because many people on Guam have seen, not many, some people on Guam have seen land returns. Some of them did not have to fight for it, but someone had to fight for that. And so I am asking all of those with lands who have been returned, all of those with lands not yet returned, that this is a time again that we've got to show the government that we still believe in this principle. We still believe that this is a priority. We still believe in addressing those injustices, not creating another injustice on top of that.
So what do we do, Madam Speaker? Because you're making the call, right? I mean, but
Yes.
again, with the way things are going with Eagles Field, with the way they're already going with this USO property, and I know you disagree when I said it really looks like it's a done deal, but clearly this is the way that the administration is going to handle it.
Clearly the way they
Right.
want to do it. And yes, if they go into a room and negotiate with the military not to return the land and instead lease it to the government of Guam, it's a workaround. They are intentionally working around our local laws, our local desire to have that land returned to ancestral landowners. And
I mean, is there a bill
no,
you can introduce?
but
or
after
is there
that, the funding, the rest of the stuff has to come, the rest of the commitment on the government side has to come from the government. So I think all of that will be examined when they come for money for that hospital that is partly owned or, where we're building on military land, for example. I don't know. It's such a big turnaround. You remember the days? It wasn't too long ago. It was only, maybe 15 years ago when all these senators were down at FENA objecting to leasing water or leasing FENA, right?
Yeah,
or leasing water back from FENA. And I just can't see how our principles can change so fast in a decade.
So is there a remedy other than, I mean, because I know you're calling on the original landowners to make noise, but what other remedy could
the
there
reason
be?
I'm calling on them, Chris, is because sometimes, if the principles are ignored, if the, justice is ignored, if the actual, even talking is not available, like I said, we can examine this when the other parts of it come down to the legislature. Of course, I am going to be very vocal about it, but in the interim, we have an election, and I hate to, but I'm just going to say, hey, if it has to be that, it has to be that, and people need to bring this up. And I really believe in elections are good at forcing issues, and I'm not saying how to vote. I'm saying use this as an opportunity to force this issue, call them on it, and to make them say publicly, do you still support return of access lands to ancestral landowners or not? And I think we should know from everybody who's running what their positions are on that.
Madam Speaker, switching gears here, the budget bill has been submitted. What are senators going to be looking for in upcoming budget hearings?
Well, of course, I think one of the biggest things we're going to be looking for are revenues. What projections are really realistic. That's the big fight that we had last year. And then secondly, for me, I'm going to do what I did last year, and that is if we are going to have excess revenues above what we predict, I would like all of that to go to income tax, right? And so we have seen progress in this income tax, and I think it's because of being very vocal and the legislature continuing to make that an issue, and the people of Guam continue to make that an issue. So we don't want to go backwards, and I just say we have to keep that pressure on that taxes are going to be paid first, right? And then we can determine what to do if we have excess revenue. But of course, I want critical services to be funded appropriately, and those would be health for sure, public safety, education.
Are you planning on working closely with the new public health advisor that the administration hired, former Senator Dennis Rodriguez?
Of course, I will work with anyone who is willing to work, right? And so, yes, I look forward to that. I am trying to seek some clarification as to exactly what that role is, and
Right.
but of course, if it's another avenue to advance, healthcare initiatives for Guam, I welcome that.
Speaker, I know that we had a couple weeks ago talked about the Health Professional Licensing Office, the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, but this issue continues to ramp up. And I know that you said you were working on some legislation relative to these issues. But, Nestor had sent me this question, and I just want to ask it. Do you think that the Board of Allied Health Examiners, the GBME, all that stuff, do you think it needs to be reformed? And like how much of a reform or changes are you anticipating making with the introduction of any bills relative to these bodies?
I want to tell you one of the biggest shifts that I've seen over the last week as we discussed this. Again, we've had several oversight hearings. We proposed medical malpractice reform. We got pushback from that. We had another oversight hearing because of complaints that the board was not addressing sexual misconduct allegations against doctors fast, quick enough so that these victims would have relief, or that these doctors would not be able or in a position to perpetuate any action like that. And I just want to say, the oversight, I think, was not taken seriously by the board members. I think HPLO staff was working very hard to try to make up for that, and they have since provided me answers on everything, the HPLO office. But these, when the boards are set up, it's the board members who are absolutely liable that these laws get followed. And so I think we absolutely need board members who are very conscious of that, and that is their priority, to follow the law, to do the utmost for the patients of Guam, to protect them, because that's what these boards are here for. So in the last UBME meeting after the oversight, I heard some discussion from Dr. David, and I want to thank her, from their attorney, talking about these are the laws, and some of the things that Dr. Burke had been saying were not accurate, first of all. Second of all, he seems really intent on an adversarial relationship with me. He thinks this has to do with me. It's really got nothing to do with me. It's got to do with patients, and patients do not have the luxury of coming out and speaking out against doctors, because we've seen what happens. They get dumped by doctors if patients speak out against them. And so we're speaking for protections, for laws that to be put in place that protect them. And so I can't remove these people from the board, but I am looking at term limits for board members. I'm looking at in the dental board, it's very explicit. I think the governor always has this prerogative to talk to board members who she's appointed and see whether they would be willing to resign. But on the other board, the dental board, there's a specific statute that says the governor shall remove any member of this board who she thinks is not doing their job, right? And so I'm going to echo that just as a reminder. I put that into the same into the medical licensing board statute. We're also looking at clarifying, clarifying what gets posted on the website. And let me just say, for anyone who maybe has heard Dr. Bird discuss that we are looking for their drunk driving records when they were in high school. If you just read the law, that's got nothing to do with it. This law requires actions that have happened to physicians while they were practicing medicine. That's exactly what's supposed to be posted. That's exactly what patients need to know. They don't need to know about your personal life or anything else. And our statutes don't require this. And this was a statute, I believe, that was sponsored by Senator Rodriguez and Senator Barnes back then. All those senators. But yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm just trying to
so what is it, Speaker? Do you think? I mean, you said if he read the law, he would know. But do you think he just hasn't read the law, or do you think he knows the law and he's deliberately misleading the public on this?
I don't know. I don't want to speak to anyone else's intention, but it is very misleading. I'll tell you that. It is misleading statements, and the law is not like that. And physicians, I think, they know that in any jurisdiction they're going to practice, that's exactly what's going to be looked at, whether they have accusations against them or while they were practicing medicine. And they either have to explain those and get accepted. And I would like to check, if these are, how many cases, they were not able to tell me this. How many cases do we have on Guam? How many licensed physicians do we have who have that type of record in another jurisdiction? I really want to know. I want to know whether our board is allowing these people who cannot be licensed in other jurisdictions or are, leaving other jurisdictions for that reason coming to Guam. It's always a suspicion. I can't confirm it right now without the data, and I'm still looking for that. But what I'm saying is, so I am going to adjust that law, and I'm not going to make it less requirements. I'm actually going to put in additional requirements. Right now, when there are pending complaints, those don't have to be published, right? All they have to do is, file it with the board, and then the board deals with it, and they investigate it kind of confidentially. But I'm going to require that it be published. And this is what I'm thinking is that if this board cannot determine or, come to a determination on these complaints within a reasonable period of time, such as 6 months, then we're not bringing justice to, in this case, victims, right? This is not, you charged me too much. This is sexual misconduct. So in those cases, I want those complaints, it's either the board addresses them within 6 months or these complaints are going to be published as well, right? And I just think that's fair, right? So if the board is going to, not address complaints promptly, then the only protection for patients is to know what complaints are outstanding. And so I think if the physicians are concerned about physician reputations, then they should be acting swiftly on these boards, and that all the physicians should be, putting some pressure on their board members to get these complaints taken care of for all of their good, I don't know any physician on Guam who wants to practice, with other physicians who are committing crimes or who are, committing negligence.
Yeah.
They don't want that. They want the standards on Guam to be high, and so I think, and the patients want that as well. So I think we should all be in unison on this, and it really, just takes good faith. Everybody needs to do their role.
I was talking with Senator Taidui yesterday, and we were talking about patient advocates on the board. Do you think when we talk about like reforms of the GBME, do you think that makes sense? Because when we look at who we got now, you have a bunch of doctors and a member of the public who I don't necessarily know if.
Well, the member of the public, I think, that was the idea behind it, that the member of the public was going to be an advocate. Yes, and so patient advocate, I'm open to that. I've heard some other senators who's talking about that during the oversight hearing, and I'm open to that. It's yeah. For example, I don't think it requires a physician to determine if another physician is sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that every other agency, every other board, whether they're physicians or not, is going to have to make, that determination. And so we just all have to be maybe trained up, as to what sexual misconduct is, and so that it's more recognizable and that some of their discussions can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if I'm a member of this GBME, there's a lot of heat being brought because of Dr. Berg's comments. So I hope that kind of, encourages a spirit of transparency with the other members on the board.
So. I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know if you know, so I just introduced the bill yesterday. I can talk about that.
Yeah. Speaker, there's something going on with your audio. I don't know what it is. It's like really, can you come closer to the laptop maybe? Oh, it's kind of wiggy. And then I did have a couple more questions, but go ahead on your bill that you introduced yesterday.
Yes. Well, we've got some of those medical bills ready to go. They might be introduced in the next few days. But we also did introduce a bill in regards to the CLTC submerged lands. And so this is to allow the CLTC, of course, we're looking for revenue for them to do more surveys, more residential leases. But this time we want water and power to be brought close to these properties so that we don't have people living, we don't want slums. We want housing. We want affordable housing. And so in order to do that, we're looking at, we put in a bill to allow submerged land leases where BSP, the Bureau of Statistics Plan, the coastal division is able to advise them on these being environmentally safe. But to allow CLTC to bring in submerged cables on their submerged land and to do this in a fair way across the board for any company and to bring our prices or our rates up to more comparable to global rates in other jurisdictions where they are landing these cables. So it's to, and then they will, of course, create, expand the industry by creating cable landings and, so these telecommunications cables will be allowed according to this bill, and we set up the rates and so that they can be applied across the board. This is to ensure that, CLTC directors change, right, and the board members change, and so the rates were really changing, and we want it to be more uniform, and of course we wanted to get as much as we could, a good value for the government.
Yeah, you're right, Madam Speaker. So, I mean, just background, guys, the Chamorro Land Trust, they have a lot of land in their inventory, right? And then some of it they lease out to, commercial entities or agricultural entities. And so with this bill, they have submerged lands. Speaker, you're saying you want them to be able to run cables, but you want to set kind of uniform rates. Because I've noticed in looking over a lot of the commercial leases, I mean, talk about cheap to a fault.
Oh, absolutely. No, to a fault is correct. Yeah. It's we did not, I don't think, get good value in a lot of the leases, and so that's why when we were looking at the one lease for TPA, we significantly amended that bill in committee, drastically, if I might add. There is a big change because I thought, we could do better with the rates, and we did, and so we want to make that uniform to other companies as well, so that everyone gets access and equal playing fields, and hopefully this will result in infrastructure money for CLTC immediately, right? We're looking for within the year, so that's what I'm really hoping for. And with every meeting that we have with CLTC, I push them on the infrastructure. So some of the infrastructure money that's coming in to Guam, GWA is going to use for bringing infrastructure to areas such as Atacama, right? And that means water and sewer. And so when they bring in sewer, we can double the number of houses that can be put on lots, right? So we can make them smaller and put more houses. So that's our goal, is to bring sewer in so that there will be more lots available.
Madam Speaker, I know that Minority Leader Senator Chris Duenas, he was interviewed on the hotspot yesterday relative to a resolution he had introduced ending the public health emergency. Your thoughts on that, Speaker?
Well, I look forward to the discussion on that. In my discussions with the governor, it sounded like she's also looking to end that. I'm hoping soon, right? But I did hear another comment about there are certain, I don't know, benefits that we are receiving that we are only receiving because we're under public health emergency. That's new to me because I thought we clarified this with the agencies that had come in and with the governor, and that, that wasn't the case. So I do want to clarify that. That's why I'm looking forward to the public hearing on Senator Duenas' resolution, so that those types of things will be laid out. That's, I think, really what we have to know, right? What impact will it have on emergency funding, emergency activities, emergency powers that are necessary? Is there another way that we can conduct that activity, without being an emergency? And I it looks to me today that yes, there should be. But of course, I think the public hearing will bear that out. I'm looking forward to that. And I hope he conducts it soon. So since it's his resolution, he's going to be the one to conduct the hearing.
Right. Yeah. Also, Madam Speaker, I know I'd asked about this a few weeks back, but was there any update with the Paramedic program?
Well, it looks to me like there is no legislation that I can introduce immediately that's going to immediately resolve that, right? So it's a certification issue that, GCC and the EMS program just were not able to secure on time. But I think they have a workaround, and the workaround sounds like they're going to send a small part of the cohort to the states to do an internship under certified paramedics. When they do that internship, then it will allow them to be eligible to take the national test. And if they take that national test and complete the internship, then they can be certified in a nationally recognized program, right? And that's what they want. So they continue to want that to be the goal, to have this nationally recognized program. So when this cohort, if they are successful, comes back, it will be able to be certified paramedics, right? And then they can be the one to oversee the field work for others going through this program, right? Then we will have certified paramedics on Guam, hopefully, and then the goal is that then they will help us to certify others, right? That's really the goal.
Yeah.
So they've laid out their whole plan, and I've looked for legislation that we could do. What any legislation would do at this point would be to bypass that national certification or national recognition and just do some type of local recognition, but they don't seem to want that. So we're going to let them pursue the national recognition, and we are going to look at legislation for some of the other programs, the EMT paramedic and the ALS, Advanced Life System. We're going to make a few, they're adopting rules, and they're also adopting a fee schedule for this, so that there will be a fee to be certified in these areas, just according to HPLO and according to the commission members. So I told them, they said they're almost ready to send it to me, and once they do, we will do that and have a hearing. So hopefully this is all progress.
Yeah, hopefully, because they had a really nice video to launch this whole program, and it'd be a shame if that went to waste.
It's a great goal, right, to have paramedics out there.
I totally agree. I mean, when we finally get it up and running and they iron out all the kinks, it will mean, I think, great things for Guam. Madam Speaker, last question here. You mentioned it at the beginning of the conversation, election year, and I know you've heard, obviously, that the congressman might be, or I'm pretty sure he's going to be running. Do you think that this is going to hurt the Democrats' chance against the GOP challenger down the line?
Not necessarily. I don't know, because I'm not a big political speculator. I consider myself a novice in that regard. I just say, do what you got to do, you know, um, truthful and tell the people your intentions and let it fall where it does. So, yeah. So, but yeah, but I wish him the best. I'm not sure. I haven't heard any confirmation on that myself.
Right. Yeah. I think we're all
But
just kind of waiting.
I am looking for Democrat senatorial candidates. If there's any out there who want to run, please do, or either party really. I just think the more, the better. The more that the legislature can represent the people of Guam. I think we need diversity, and that would be better for all of us. So I'm still looking forward to that. And I actually, election season stresses us out, I think, a little bit because everything seems to, I don't know, be elevated, be amplified. But I actually like one part of that, and that is that people get called to task, candidates get called to task on what they intend to do, what their principles are, how are they going to act, right? And I like that accountability. I really embrace it.
Well, that's something we have in common then.
Yes, and by the way, so that's tomorrow, right? So we're celebrating Social Work Month. We just gave out some awards last night, or some recognition to Social Worker of the Year, Public Citizen of the Year. The Social Work Association recognized them. But it's also Mess Tomorrow, right? And so I just wanted to share some of the activities that our office is doing. This is actually led in our office by one of our younger members, and that is Lincoln Madassi. So she's to really keep the momentum going through words of the day. We've been recognizing also different people in Guam's history. And so we recognized 3 so far. They were one was Matilde Ding Castro Gold.
Oh, nice. Yeah, of course.
Sure. And the other one was Atanasio Taitano Perez. Tomorrow we're going to be releasing on Rosa Perez Salas. She was an educator and a vocal advocate for the physically and intellectually disabled, as well as the elderly. So we put out a release on these people. This is in partnership with Guampedia, of course, just to bring a little bit more highlight to them during, more month, Miss Tomorrow. And we also had a burial panel. I don't know if you were able to tune into that at all. It was a panel. We joined with the University of Guam. They were having a conference, a research conference. So we put in a proposal to do a panel during their research conference, and they accepted it, and we were so excited. And so that panel discussed, Chris, the different burial policies on Guam, not burial, reburial. Okay, so when they find remains, human remains that are, tomorrow, Lati period, whatever,
right.
When they find those remains, we have a certain guidelines as to how they are treated. So we went over the law and the guidelines as to treatment of those human remains. And then we went over some examples of how those guidelines have been implemented. For example, when the Hyatt was built, there was 400 human remains that were removed and were reburied at another part on the Hyatt property. And you can find this now. There's a little, like a 1-foot tall monument that's been put on a grassy area in front of the Hyatt.
Yeah.
That has a plaque that describes this. So there are different ones all throughout Tumon, all throughout Guam, and we took some photos and described a little bit of the history and the monuments that have been created and the ceremonies that have been done when these reburials occurred. Those are the 2 big things: is what monuments remain in place, how do they look now, are they appropriate or not, do we need to make changes going forward, and what ceremonies were done and what ceremonies need to be done, right? And as you know, there was also a recent reburial up there at Cabanan Padang on the new Camp Loss. And, that one, it was behind a military gates, so most of the community could not attend. And so those are some of the issues, right? And so when they reburied, they made a monument. That monument, I haven't seen it myself.
Yeah.
But when they were building it, that's when they found more burials. That was so ironic.
Yeah.
And then they built the monument. It's done. And so it's just, we're taking a look at all these monuments, current and past. How do they look now? And are they really appropriate? Do we want to do better? My proposal, of course, is that we can do better.
Yeah.
And that we should do better. We owe it, to our ancestors to, that's what we are going to do, right? Is to honor them, take care of them. We're going to show our children that this is part of our value system, and that we are going to continue to do that and not let that die because we forgot. So I'm trying to remind everyone that these exist all over Guam. There's one in the road to Dundan, right? They found it when they were widening the road to the landfill, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, all over Guam, and I just think I'd like everyone to know where they are.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a map. Actually, I'm gonna help us to make a map so that we can go do our own,
tour.
Fair respects.
Yes. So, Madam Speaker, that sounds like a great discussion. Is it up anywhere, like on the web or something?
We are working with UOG to get that up. I would like it to be repeated. It was excellent, I thought, and so we had panel members, including the former Shippo, which is Linda Uggan.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and we invited the current Shippo, who's off island. So they sent Ian Catling from the Shippo's office.
Right.
He was there and to talk about the current ones. And I'd asked them all to talk about what took place during their terms, right? Their terms.
Yeah. And what the
and then,
protocol
of course, I invited Hope Cristobal because Hope Cristobal, when my kids were young, was conducting ceremonies. And, I remember her because when I first became a lawyer, one of the first cases I remember is that she took the NICO to court because of their, they were unearthing human remains there.
Yeah.
And now you can see the monument that the settlement in that case kind of ended up with, right? There's a big monument up on the top of the hill as you enter to the NICO Hotel. There's, I think, 8 lati.
Yeah, but it's still haunted, Speaker. It's still haunted. Ask anyone.
That's what I think everybody has to understand. That's because, and they don't maybe know why. They don't know that there were.
It's because they got taken to court. That's why.
300 some human remains that were unearthed there and moved and reburied. And of course, it's very painful when we were having our discussion to talk about this type of thing. But former Senator Cristobal, she had conducted ceremonies and these there at Gotnya down near Gun Beach, right, where the beach bar is. 2 ceremonies there, beautiful ceremonies. And so she showed videos and pictures of these ceremonies. And, so we are looking at how do we move forward? Who gets to stay? Right now, it's pretty much the Shippo that decide what the ceremony will look like, what the monuments will look like. And we are trying to push for additional public input, additional opportunity for the public to pay their respects, to make these ceremonies as beautiful as possible and fitting for our ancestors.
Madam Speaker, just before you go, you mentioned you're profiling people with your office for Escobar. Is that like on your website or something if people want to check that out?
Yeah, and we put it on social media.
Okay. Yeah, and then last question here. Sorry. A comment on the hearing yesterday for the war claims funding?
Okay. I think that that is to try to cover all survivors of the war who lived through the war but died prior to 2018, right, when the federal program recognized those who lived after 2018 only. So to try to cover those, that was the subject of my amendment, remember, on the other war claims bill, and we had big controversy over that, but I'm always a proponent of that. The problem is that this bill, the funding source, according to Revenue Tax and DOA, they need further clarification, and it would be giving a huge. It requires businesses to it will allow businesses to get tax credits. I don't know. For me, I'd rather we just, if we're going to collect the tax and give it, it's a more direct way to do it. But I think everybody's trying to be creative to find a way to fund that, a sustainable way. And so I don't think it's here yet, and that, yes, we will need to have additional input.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Oh, by the way, work claims. So we had our work claims meeting. I'm on that committee,
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah.
education committee, and I just want to tell everybody, April 1st, prior to April 1st, the applications will be available at DOA's website. Prior to April 1st. On April 1st, you can bring your application into the Guam Museum and actually file for work. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Take care.
All right. There you go. Wow. Lots to unpack there. 822, the Speaker of the Legislature. Interesting comments there on the election. She said, hey, I mean, basically, do you tell the truth, work hard, earn the vote. We did have a bunch of comments here. Let's go ahead and get into those. Good morning, guys. We did have a comment. Someone was asking, it was a great interview, blah, blah, blah.